First off, I want to say I'm sorry. I'm late to uploading this video. I went on vacation and didn't get back to making my game for a little while, but I'm back now and I've been grinding quite a bit. So without further ado, here's the next frog log. The first thing I began to do was create a new scene to begin implementing a market to buy and sell, a forge to craft and dismantle, and flowers to use in crafting. And it wouldn't be a frog log without me instantly becoming sidetracked by adding so-called polish to the game. I implemented a restriction for the player moving in the inventory and having the mouse lock and unlock depending on UI. Now with that out of the way, I decided to try and stay a little more focused, and I hopped into Blender and decided to make a template flower that would be used to create runes to fuse with your weapons to make them elemental. Also at this point, I had thought of another mechanic that I saw used in the game Lies of P, where you're able to disassemble weapons into two parts, the hilt and the blade, and reattach them to other parts to create unique weapons. I think this would be a cool feature, just not sure how it would feel in-game. If you have any input, let me know in the comments. Here's a time lapse of the flower, and I'll see you back when it's done. Now with the flower in Unity, it's really easy to add all the features that make the item able to be focused on, picked up, and dropped. Here's how it looks. I also decided to make another flower, and well, let's just move on. I got started with crafting. So I hopped back into Blender and decided to create a forge that acts as a place to craft for now. Here's how it turned out. I started with quite primitive and easy crafting recipes, like crafting the health and mana potions. This isn't how the crafting will be forever, simply just a placeholder, and tweaks still need to be made. For example, different colored texts for different rarities of potions and multi-crafting. Next up on the agenda was adding a merchant so you can buy and sell items. This was also a pretty quick thing to set up after the forge, and here's how it turned out. I was satisfied with this for now, and decided to go back and look at my procedural world. And if any of you can recall, I had left it in quite a broken state. The height and detail upscaling wasn't working. I looked and looked at every line of code, and there it was. My jaw dropped as I read this line of code. I simply couldn't believe it. I was so focused on the error being in either the height detail or map enlarger method, but the issue was when I was leveling off the mesh to create those little hills/cliffs. I was multiplying the original height by 1 divided by the square size or the level of detail for the mesh. This is why the mesh looked normal at 1 times level of detail. I spent weeks and countless hours manually going through the for loops with different data, seeing if the results are as expected, and every time it was. Once I removed this multiplication, it felt so nice to finally see more detail working. Granted, it doesn't look as good as I want it to, but this is definitely a good change. With this, I finally decided to move on and start making the world come to life with some foliage. I decided to use point disk sampling for my placement of the foliage. I followed the super easy tutorial by Sebastian Lague. The link will be in the description down below if you'd like to check it out. After implementing it, as you can see, everything was being placed vertically. So after a bit of tweaking, this is the very primitive placement of the foliage. The next thing I implemented was just removing everything from the path using a raycast. This was just one step of the final product. I then worked on a way to only remove certain foliage from the path. The way I achieved this was just by matching the placed foliage to a predetermined list of the valid path foliage. The scale of some of the bushes, sticks, and rocks were kind of big, so I added a small variation of sizes during instantiation. And here's the final look. Hope you enjoy.